I used to think the worst thing you could find in your house was a stranger. It turns out it's a truth that knows your name. The text came on a Wednesday, 7:12 p.m., while I was standing over a pot of boiling pasta like that somehow made me a husband who cooked. Unknown number. A screenshot of a bank transfer. My wife's name in the memo line. How much longer will you make her pay? I stared at it long enough for the steam to fog my glasses. In the living room, Lena laughed at something in her show, one of those soft, private laughs she kept in her pocket for when life behaved. We'd been married 7 years. I thought I knew every angle of that laugh. "Everything okay?" she called. "Yeah," I lied, and turned the gas off. The room felt smaller than a phone screen. The number didn't respond again. I tried calling, went to voicemail with a generic, robotic tone. I told myself it was a scam, a mistake, a wrong number. I told myself 100 things that were more comfortable than "someone thinks my wife is paying for something." What do you do with a suspicion you don't want? You fold laundry. You make dinner. You hand your wife a plate and pretend your hands aren't shaking. Lena has a way of making every room warmer without touching a light switch. She's not loud, not dramatic, thoughtful, deliberate. The kind of person who knows your coffee order and the date of your dentist appointment. When people ask me why I fell in love with her, I always say she paid attention. To me, to everything. She also had rules about privacy that felt noble until they started to feel like fences. She never looked through my phone, I never looked through hers. She had a small desk in the guest room and kept it locked. I didn't ask why. On the first day we moved into the house, she said, "Let's promise to tell the truth even when it makes us look bad." I'd said yes, like a man who didn't think he'd ever look bad. That Wednesday, after she went to bed, I sat in the dark and scrolled through our bank app. Most things made sense. Groceries, utilities, a neon sign from the bar we liked. Lena's impulse purchases were small, charming. Then I saw it. A recurring transfer. Once a month, always the same amount, always the same payee. A. Mercer. The memos varied. Support, rent, school, April. They went back for years. I clicked on one of them and stared at the date. The first payment was 11 months after our wedding. I could have woken her up right then. I didn't. There's a kind of fear that makes you gentle because you're afraid of breaking the thing you're about to lose. The next day at lunch, I typed A. Mercer into a search bar, like that would summon a person. It summoned 100. Artists, accountants, a florist in Ohio. I added our city. I got an obituary for an Allison Mercer from a decade ago, 23 years old, survived by her parents and a brother. No details about how. A memorial fund. A photo of a girl in a graduation cap with a laugh as wide as a street. I closed the tab like I opened a wrong door in a house that wasn't mine. That night, Lena said she wanted to get to bed early. She said headache and smiled like an apology. I told her I'd lock up. I didn't. I waited until her breathing settled into that soft, steady rhythm I'd known long enough to sync my own to it on bad nights. Then I went to the guest room. Her desk was locked. The key was where it always was, tucked under the ceramic dish where she kept loose coins. She trusted me not to use it. I used it. Inside, neat stacks of paper. Receipts. A folder labeled taxes. Another unlabeled. When I opened it, a scent of stale paper rose like a quiet voice. There were printouts of bank transfers, our transfers, to A. Mercer. The memos varied. Support, rent, school, April. They went back to the same month as the first payment. I clicked on one of them and stared at the date. The first payment was 11 months after our wedding. At the bottom of the folder was a rental agreement for a storage unit across town. The signature was Lena's.
The rental started the same month as the first payment. The room shook a little. Or maybe I did. I put everything back exactly as I found it, turned off the light, climbed into bed next to the person I loved most in the world, and lay there listening to the story I didn't have words for yet. The storage facility looked like 100 others. Corridors, roll-up doors, fluorescent lighting that made everyone look a little lying. The woman at the desk didn't ask questions when I presented the rental number and a married smile. She handed me a pass and a code and told me to have a nice day. Unit 312 smelled like dust and a winter that never ended. There were 3 boxes and a tarp-covered shape the size of a bicycle. I lifted the tarp. It wasn't a bicycle. It was a car bumper. Faded silver blue. A crack spidering from one corner. A scrape of paint the color of someone else's car or someone else's life. Beside it lay a pair of headlight housings and a small box with a dash cam inside. The memory card was missing. The boxes held old paperwork, repair invoices from a body shop I'd never heard of, cash payments, no names listed on the customer line. A plastic bag with a shirt I recognized as mine from a decade ago. A college baseball tee, torn at the shoulder, a faint dark stain along the seam. I sat down on the cold floor and felt my body understand something my mind didn't. We met 12 years ago, Lena and I, when we were still the sort of people who believed sleep was optional. I was the kind of 24 that drinks on Tuesday and calls it networking. She was 22 and already moved like she knew what parts of her life would matter. We'd only been dating a few months when I called her at 2 a.m. from the edge of a noise I don't remember. I said, "Can you come get me?" which is different than "I need you," but sounds the same when you're the one who answers. It had been a bad night, a party, too much something. I remember gravel under my shoes, wind in my ears, the blare of someone's music as I walked away from a fight I didn't start but probably didn't have to finish. I remember sitting in my car, hands shaking, trying to put the key in the ignition and missing. I remember Lena's headlight swinging into the lot like a rescue boat. And I remember insisting, like a child insisting he's tall enough for the ride, that I could drive us back. She said, "We can come for your car tomorrow." I said, "It's fine." On the way home, we hit something. That's what I told myself for 9 years. Something. The sound was sudden, a heavy thump, the wheel jerking in my hands. It was a side street, no lights, no traffic. I pulled over. We got out. The front bumper had a crack. I ran my fingers along it like a man reading Braille and forced a laugh I didn't feel. I said, "Pothole. God, this city." She said, "Get back in the car." Her voice went flat in the way that makes people listen. The next morning there was news about a hit and run a mile from where we'd been. A young woman on a late run struck after midnight. No description of the car. No suspects. I remember turning the TV off and standing in our kitchen with my hands on the counter, like the counter could hold me up. I told myself we were nowhere near there. I told myself pothole until it turned into a prayer. I never got the bumper fixed. Except I did. Or someone did. Not on my books, not on any card. But here was the proof. The old bumper, the receipts, the dash cam with its mouth shut. I drove home with the storage key beating like a second heart in my pocket and a word I had avoided for a decade waking up in my throat. Lena was on the back deck when I got there, pruning the fig tree like a person whose day did not include the word collision. When she saw me, she smiled, then stopped, her hands lowered. The pruning shears clicked once. She went very still, like animals do before they run. "What's wrong?" she asked. I said, "Who is Allison Mercer?" Her hands lowered. The pruning shears clicked once. She went very still, like animals do before they run. Where did you see that name? In your desk, in our bank statements, in the storage unit. I looked at her and watched the truth rearrange her face. I found the bumper, Lena. She closed her eyes. When she opened them, she was the version of herself that told the truth even when it made her look bad. Let's go inside, she said.
At the kitchen table, she didn't reach for my hand. She folded hers in her lap like a student. For a moment, all I could think was how much I loved those hands. I should have told you, she said. Yes, I said, and was surprised my voice worked. What is this? She took a breath that looked like walking into cold water. The night of that party, she said, you were not okay. You were shaking so hard I thought you'd be sick. You insisted on driving, and I thought if I argued it would escalate. So I got in, thinking I could keep you calm. We turned onto Summit. I told you to slow down. You didn't hear me. There was a shadow, and then the sound. I could hear it again, and felt my hands curl on their own. You got out. You ran your hand along the bumper and said pothole like a spell. I believed you because I needed to. I got you home. You fell asleep on the couch like someone unplugged you. She looked at me then, really looked, like she was trying to place my face at a distance. The next morning, I woke up to the news, she said. I drove back to Summit by myself. There were police markers on the pavement. They were looking for debris. Your bumper had a spider crack at the exact corner the report said would show damage. Your dash cam was hanging by the cord. I took it. I told myself it was to keep you from watching it on loop and jumping off a bridge. I took your car to a shop that doesn't ask questions and paid cash. I rented a storage unit because I couldn't throw the pieces away. I didn't know what the right thing was, just the next thing. Why didn't you go to the police? I asked. The question came out smaller than it felt. I almost did, she said. 3 times I drove to the station and sat in the parking lot and couldn't make my hand open the door. You were you. Her eyes flicked to the scar on my wrist I forget I have until someone looks. You were held together with careful. You were just starting this job. Your dad had just had his cardiac thing. You were the only person your sister listened to. I told myself it could be coincidence. I told myself a lot of things. And the payments? I asked. My voice felt like paper. Her eyes brightened with something like shame. A year later, I saw an update. Allison's family had started a memorial scholarship. There were posts. People online asking why no one had been caught. A guy who claimed his cousin knew someone with a silver car. I panicked. I wrote a letter I never sent. I started sending money to the scholarship anonymously. And then, not anonymously. I thought if there was ever a PI, they might stop. Or if we ever had to face her parents, I could say we'd tried to do something that wasn't nothing. I got a text, I said. Someone asking how long I'd make you pay. She flinched like I'd thrown something. They found out? She whispered. I don't know who sent it, I said. Lena? Was it me? Did I? The word stuck. Did I kill her? She didn't rush to answer. She didn't say the thing I wanted and didn't deserve. Of course not. She looked at her hands as if the answer were written there, and said, slowly, I don't know. I know we hit something. I know Allison Mercer died a mile from there that night. I know the timing fits too well and not perfectly enough to sleep with. I know I tried to carry it because I thought if anyone could break under the weight, it was you. For me, I said, and the words landed heavy. You lied for me. I lied to myself for you, she said. I told myself it was about mercy, but it was about fear. Losing you, losing the life we were just starting, watching you drowning and not pulling you out. We sat there with the third person at our table, the girl whose name had lived in our house longer than our wedding photos. The silence felt like standing at the edge of a very clear lake. You can see the rocks at the bottom, but it's still a long way down. What do we do? I asked, and heard in my voice the plural I wasn't sure we still were. We tell the truth, she said, as if reminding herself. We see a lawyer. We go to the police. We give them everything. I'll sign whatever statement I need to. If I obstructed, I obstructed. If I lied, I lied. I can't keep breathing like this. I should have told you then, she added, eyes shining. But I didn't trust you to survive it. That's on me. There's a moment after a confession when you want a judge to appear and bang a gavel and tell you what happens next. No judge came. We made coffee because people do human things in inhuman moments. We held hands across the table as if that could align us with a reality we had dodged long enough for it to become the dark furniture of our home. I could have screamed. I didn't. I could have forgiven immediately. I couldn't. What I could do was feel the shape of two truths in my chest at once. She lied. She loved me. Sometimes those are enemies. Sometimes they are twins. We found an attorney who didn't look surprised when people said unsayable things. We told him everything. He told us what we should have expected. Time erases evidence. Eyewitnesses are soft pencils. A decade dulls the sharpest knives. He said the dashcam's missing memory card would have mattered once, that the bumper would have told a clearer story if it hadn't been sitting in a metal graveyard for 10 years. He said maybe and could and unlikely a lot. He said, you can go in and make a statement. It may not produce charges. It will produce a record. We went anyway. I said the word summit out loud to a detective who had a face like a winter coat. I told him about the night, about the sound, about the way I'd prayed to potholes. Lena told him about the storage unit, the cash repairs, the scholarship payments like a tithe for a church that never asked for our faith. He wrote carefully and looked at us like people who had been underwater a very long time. We'll reopen the file, he said. No promises. He said it kindly, which hurt more. We drove home without the radio. At a red light, Lena reached for my hand. I let her take it. On the porch, she exhaled like someone disassembling a piece of furniture. Whatever happens, she said, thank you. For what? I asked. For not making me be brave alone, she said. We didn't sleep well for weeks. We checked the mail like people expecting a verdict. None came. A month later, a letter arrived from the foundation that ran Allison's scholarship. Not from her family. A generic thank you, the kind they give to donors who want to feel useful. Enclosed was a note from a recipient, a girl studying physical therapy, who wrote about wanting to help people learn to walk again. I stared at the sentence, learn to walk again, until the words stopped meaning anything. Some days I feel like the world forgave us because the file cabinets got too full. Other days I think forgiveness doesn't belong in the same sentence as what we did. Most days I carry the two truths like stones in opposite pockets and try to walk steady. We kept the storage unit for a while, then emptied it. We handed the bumper to the detective. He logged it like history. I returned the dashcam to the box where I keep the small things I will not throw away and do not want to see. Did our marriage survive? The kind answer is yes, because we still wear rings and say we. The honest answer is, we are rebuilding a bridge we didn't know we were crossing until we heard it crack. Some days we lay boards together. Some days we stare at the water. Sometimes I'll catch Lena watching me the way she did on our second date, with attention that feels like light through leaves. Sometimes I look back at her and see the woman who lied to keep me whole. Both are real. Both live here now. If you came here for a moral, I don't have a clean one. I have this. People do terrible things out of love and fear and call it protection. Time does not heal, it hides. Truth is what opens the curtain. You can love somebody and still be owed the truth. You can tell yourself a story so long it becomes furniture. Eventually, you trip over it in the dark. I also have a name, I say sometimes, quietly. When I pass the old corner on Summit and the light is red and the night is thin. The name I learned in an obituary that should have been an invitation to a wedding. Allison Mercer. I say it not because it absolves or condemns, but because there are lives that deserve to be said out loud by the people who spent too long not saying anything at all. If the person you love hides a crime to save you, what do you owe the truth, and what do you owe the love that made the lie?
Now, let me ask you this. Would you hide a crime to protect someone you love, even knowing the truth might catch up one day? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'm genuinely curious what you would do. And to make sure you never miss a new story, subscribe, leave a like, and hit the notification bell. There are many more secrets, shadows, and impossible choices ahead.